All right, this is exclusive, y'all. IDN-TV, man, I'm gonna read the actual grand jury transcript. It's a few parts to the grand jury transcript. I'm gonna read the first part for you guys. This was recorded, let me see, July 27, 2023. Long story short, the grand jury transcripts records the statements from these two witnesses that we're gonna go over today. I'm only gonna include one. The other one is a retired police officer that was doing security at the MGM. He really doesn't say anything during the transcripts. He just confirms that Orlando Anderson was the guy wearing that 13 jersey. I'm sure you guys are not interested in that. Everybody knows about it, but we're getting to the nitty gritty. Now we're talking about a witness. I'm not gonna say the witness's name. I'm just gonna kind of leave it out. He's a fellow member of the Southside Crips. And what I'm gonna do is low key just read it to you guys and paint the picture. I will edit it down to save you time. If you guys are rocking with me, before we start, make sure you like the video. This is exclusive. I had to dig for it. And here is the official paperwork on Keefe D and how they're pretty much going to call these witnesses during the trial. So let's get right into it. Now, it's an ex-member of the Southside Crips. Here we go right here. Now, they said, while your friends and the big homies were out to go see the fight, is that right? Correct. And was that the Mike Tyson / Bruce Seldon fight? Yes. And that was the weekend of September 7th, 1996. Yes. And this is pretty shortly after the Lakewood Mall fight. Yeah. That's the reason why it really spilled over there. You know, that's what I mean. That's the reason why. Now, fair to say you were in jail and didn't see or participate in any of the events that occurred around the Tupac Shakur killing, correct? No, I didn't. But your friends were out there during that time. Yes, correct, my circle. In your circle, including Orlando Anderson. Right. When you were in jail, did you hear about the fight that occurred after the Tyson-Seldon fight? Actually, yes, I did. At the time, I didn't know if you're familiar with gangs and stuff as far as it go, but if you're a documented Crip blood or something, they take you to what's called these modules. So if I was in a Crip module, there's nothing but Crips, and I was wondering why my gang came to me, to my cell. They're like, boom, turn around. And I'm like, what's going on, man? He was just like, he wants to show you something. So they took me to the room similar to something like this with just computers and stuff. They sat me down and they said, you're not going to like what you're about to see, blase, blase. I didn't even know what they were going to show me. I didn't know if anything was going on with my family, anything. I didn't know what they were about to show me. He showed me, and that's when I seen the fight. This is before even the news had seen it. The fight we're talking about is the altercation between Orlando Anderson and the members of Death Row. Is that fair? Correct. Now I'm going to show you what is marked as Grand Jury Exhibit 8. You said you've seen this many of times before, is that right? Yeah, correct. Is it fair to say some of these portions are even on the internet, is that correct? Certain things I've seen is not on the internet. They're playing the video. I'm going to pause it real quick. What are we looking at right here? What's going on here? Death Row guys jumping Orlando. So Death Row is jumping Orlando. You've been affiliated with gangs and you understand that you're in the heat during this time. Is this something that might happen in retaliation for a chain getting stolen? Of course, yes. Is this something you might expect to happen for a chain getting stolen? Yes, if not worse. I'm going to continue to play. Now, from your observation, would appear to be a one-on-one fade, or was it a, no, they jumped him? And is that something that happens sometimes in gang situations? Yes, majority of the time. All right, now if you experience something that does this to a member of the Southside Crips, is there repercussions that happens? Yeah, something has to happen. And why do you say something has to happen? It's the world of gangs. If you don't retaliate to a situation that happened or occurred, especially in the magnitude of this, you know what I mean? And that person that did it to you, that's the whole key. It depends on who the person is, A lot of homeboys get beat up, come back, oh man, they got me. There's a lot of homies that won't even run to their aid, like, okay, if we catch them, we catch them, But if you're in a certain level, it's going to happen. Do you see somebody wearing a Dan Marino jersey? That's my buddy Orlando Anderson. And he was the person at the MGM getting beat up. Yes. We already talked about Orlando Anderson being the nephew of Keefe D. I think you described him as someone in the gang world that had a silver spoon. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth to the gang world. Right. So him getting beat up by Mob Peru and Death Row, was that going to necessitate a reaction by the Southside Crips? The witness says for sure it was. And if we're being honest, if you were out there, would that cause you to react to a certain way? Most definitely. Now, while you were in jail or after, well, How long were you in jail? It was only a couple of days. Did you meet any of your friends that were out in Vegas that weekend? Yes. Well, me and Dre were living together at the time, Big Dre. And then I met, Orlando. And his arm was in some type of sling because he had dislocated his shoulder. While his shoulder was already messed up before, he always used to get into fights and he'd throw his shoulder out sometime. But during that altercation, it popped. So he would always keep a sling everywhere he'd go, cars, everything. He'd keep one because sometimes he never went to the surgery and all of that. So yeah, I linked up with him. I didn't link up with Keefe. I seen Keefe and T Brown, but when they got to the hood, they was with us for a few minutes, They went and did them because, Keefe lived in the hood too. So he went around to his house, and just chilled. But I was around Big Dre in Orlando. Since you and Big Dre lived together, did you guys ever have a conversation with Big Dre about what went down that weekend? Yeah, he told me what happened. And when did he tell you what happened? Like, did he tell you right after they came back? No, we wasn't around anyone. It was just us at home. When we left the neighborhood, we went home. We lived in Hawthorne at the time, and we went there, just sitting, and we were talking, and I'm just like, man, that's messed up what they did to Lane. And he was like, yeah, man, this happened, we seen him, and we was going to the club 662. And so wait, I'm going to break this down a little bit. Was it weird for Orlando Anderson to be by himself, given the fact that you were all in this kind of situation? It was because we always moved in groups, you know what I mean? This was especially with him not having Big Dre with him. Now, we all don't go with him to walk to the restroom. It would have been Big Dre, and Big Dre honestly asked him. Like when he said he was going to the restroom, and Dre's like, oh, I'm gonna come with you, And Lane told him, nah, man, I'm gonna go. I got it. You stay right here. You know what I mean? I don't know what Lane was thinking. He knew Death Row people were there, and that's for sure. He knew that. Everyone knew Death Row people were there. Everyone knew Death Row was there. Death Row knew we were there before we even got there. Not me. I'm just saying the neighborhood. Right. Yeah, did Big Dre tell you about what happened at the fight? Did he see the fight? Did he see the aftermath of the fight in terms of Orlando getting beat down? He didn't see it, or he'd have been right there with him. They linked up after Orlando got together and walked off and met with his uncle. Uncle Keefe D, yes. At some point, there was a decision made. Did Big Dre tell you the plan after leaving the MGM? Yeah, they didn't have nothing set in stone on what they wanted to do, but the whole idea was to catch him. And to catch who? Tupac and Suge. Now, did you find out how they got firearms, or did they bring firearms with them? How did they have firearms? The witnesses said this. It says, Zip, one of those players out of New York, out of Harlem. That's how actually we met Puff. That's how we got connected with Puff, is through the drug lord. Even bigger. He was way bigger than Keefe D, but out of Harlem. He had a compartment built in his Benz, and he told Keefe, Keefe, I got this pistol if all you need, blah, blah, blah. Not only that though, we had it, and at the time we had homeboys that lived there. We were trying to coordinate, linking up with the homies too, you know what I mean? And then we were going to meet up at 662, like meet up. Just got the guns from Zip. Zip gave the gun to Keefe D. And that's what Dre told you? That Zip got the gun? Yeah, that's Zip. I want to show you exhibit number 7, and you said that's Zip, yes. So you hear from Dre that Keefe gets the gun from Zip. Have you ever seen this secret compartment before? I knew he had it. He used to have them in his vans, He used to have them kind of vans, like a family van, the big ones, but like a safari van. So Big Dre tells you the plan is to link up with everybody, go to 662. Why 662? What were they expecting to happen? Well, they knew they were going to bump into either Suge or Tupac that night because Tupac was supposed to perform that night anyway. And for the record, you know what 662 means, right? Why don't you tell us? It spells mob. So on your phone, 662 dials MOB out. So this is back in the day when you had to press the phone number in 3 times. Correct. All right, so 662 corresponds with mob. Yes, it does. Now, and then you mentioned that Keefe D was trying to organize people you guys had out there to also go to 662, right? Correct. Well, let them know what was going on. We were beefing. We already was beefing, but it's on. And of course, you're like, okay, let's get this together. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to meet you guys over there. And it's fair to say communication was a little bit more difficult back in 1996. Yes. Very different. So that's why the gap of time, because in that case, they would have been in the MGM instantly. Like, anything's accessible right there. You hop on the freeway, boom, you're there. But they just went on their own way. So Dre tells you what happens. Like, do they see Tupac or Suge at 662? Not actually at 662. On the way to 662, they see him. They said how they seen him. Suge and them had an entourage of cars behind them, you know, like different people, homies, possibly security behind them. And what they said, what caught their eye, was they seen some girls who were like, oh, that's Tupac, screaming at the car and things like that, like Tupac, Tupac. So that alerted them because they didn't know what car Tupac was in at the time. So they signaled him like Tupac was in one of those 745s or 750s, whichever it was. So T Brown merged in a certain way because remind you, the homies was an entourage and they kind of just zoomed right up on the side of Tupac where they was at. So I'm going to stop you right here. You said T Brown. Dre told you T Brown was driving. Yeah, T Brown was driving. Keefe was in the passenger side. Orlando was in the passenger rear. Right side of DeAndre. DeAndre was on the left side. And you said T Brown was known as somebody that could drive pretty well. T Brown was one of those people that did a lot of dirt. So he had to drive away from a lot of people in his lifetime. He was actually good at it, you know? So he was a pretty good wheelman? Yes. And then you say Keefe was in the front passenger seat? Yes. Does that surprise you that Keefe would be in the front? I mean, given the fact of his statue of that he's an OG, would it make sense that he would be in the front? Yeah, he wasn't going to get in the back. And then you said Orlando was behind his uncle. Was he behind his uncle? Yeah. And then you said Big Dre was on the driver's side back. Yeah, behind Terry. Okay, and so did Big Dre tell you what happens after they seen Tupac? Yeah, they got on the side of him. Keefe handed the gun to Lane. And Lane, Orlando Anderson, yes, Orlando Anderson. He handed it to him, and honestly, if it wasn't for Orlando sitting right there, I think he would have handed it to Dre first, because Dre was on the right side. But knowing just what happened to Orlando, he was going to give Orlando a chance to redeem himself in some kind of way. You know what I mean? I'm going to give you the option to do your thing. So in gang culture, it's the person who took the beating. So it is exact who gets revenge, right? Because who's going to take the initiative? You don't take the initiative for yourself. Would it be fair to say that would be expected of Orlando Anderson? For sure, Orlando. He wasn't coming back to Compton with nothing being done. That would have put smut all over. With everything that he feel he gained by being in the gang world and what level he was on, by him going back after getting stomped out like that, now everybody feels like you're not who you say you are, you know what I mean? And so you say the gun passed from Keefe to Orlando. That's what Dre told you? Yeah, that's exactly what he told me. But it's fair to say that Dre told you that Tupac's vehicle, the BMW, was actually on the driver's side. Is that correct? Yes. And so what does Dre tell you what happened after Keefe passes the firearm to Orlando Anderson? All right, so he passed the firearm to Orlando. Orlando did not have a clear shot. Big Dre is 6'6". At this time, he's around 370, 400 pounds. He's big. I mean, my time of knowing things, you're not going to reach over because shells will be popping in Big Dre's face and all kind of stuff. Can't bend down or anything, he's too big. So basically said, he's on my side, I'll do it. But it was like, you know, it was only a split second. The way I'm explaining it might seem a little slow, but this is how he did it. Lane couldn't get a clear shot. Boom. Dre said, give me the pistol. Got the pistol. Boom. Did his thing. Did the shooting. Now you hear a lot of speculation about the big arm. Authority was just like, we're not going to get into those things. I just want to hear what Dre told you. That's exactly what Dre told me. He did the shooting. Okay, did Dre tell you he did the shooting? He did the shooting. And based on his size, where he says he was positioned in the car, he was in a better position to do it, period. Okay, one thing I didn't ask you is, did he ever tell you what car they were in, what kind of car? It was a white Cadillac that was renting from, I believe, Terry's mother or his brother. I know his brother used to rent cars a lot for him. I don't know which one, it was a brown. And did Dre tell you what happened after Dre shoots? Yeah, he said after he did the shooting, the entourage that was behind Suge and them, he said once, you know, they was about to hit the corner. He says that Trayvon was trying to chase him down. He was in the car with someone else. I don't know who it was, but Trayvon sent a couple of shots at them. You know, at Keefe D's way, Keefe D and them, they tried to pursue chase, but Terrence got, you know, he got away, he maneuvered. There was some girls that were trying to follow them as well. You know, Dre and them, he said they just gave him a couple of back, boom, 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 you know. He said that he veered basically, and that's how they kept going. So did Big Dre tell you what they did after the shooting? He didn't exactly tell me. So if he didn't tell you, then yeah, I didn't ask, you know what I mean? Certain things you don't want to get too involved in. It seems like you're trying to get information, and they'll think that regardless. You could be their best bud, and they'll be like, man, why are you asking me this? I mean, you know what I mean? So I would kind of let them come out from there, you know. I really didn't ask, oh man, this, that, and this, that. that's a cardinal sin. Let me ask you this. No, it wasn't trying to get information. It was just a standard conversation. You know, we live together, talk about stuff. It was just that type of setting. So when they get back to LA, do you ever see the car again? Do you ever see that white Cadillac? Yeah, I seen it before. They had it a couple of days before they left. You saw it before they left, yeah. And did you see it after all? I didn't see it when they came back. No, I didn't. Who was driving the white Cadillac when you saw it before they left? Terry. Yeah, Terry had it. So ultimately, you guys learn that Tupac dies, right? Correct. Big, huge worldwide story, right? And not just amongst the world, but amongst the neighborhood. Is it fair to say people were talking about what happened in Vegas? Oh yeah. And did Big Dre ever publicly go around the neighborhood saying, yo, I shot Pac? No, he didn't. One reason he didn't is, for one, he didn't want the heat that I killed a rapper, Tupac especially at that point. Not only that, he didn't want to take the credit for Orlando. While you were in the hood, people or in the neighborhood were assuming that Orlando Anderson was the shooter. Yeah, that's how it was painted. Everybody said Orlando did it. So word on the street, it was Orlando. It was Orlando, word on the street. And so Dre told you he didn't want to take credit for it. He said there wasn't no reason, you know. It happened to Orlando. By him knowing the street aspect of everything, he's like, no, that's his best bud. He's like, go ahead, man. I'll let you get that glory at this time, you know. So yeah, he kind of just fell back and left it alone, kind of. Now, did it affect in the gang culture, particularly in the mid-90s? Was it important for Orlando Anderson to be the person that gets the retaliation for the beating he took at the MGM? Yes, because back then it was called Go Get Your Man. Okay, so like whenever somebody did something to you, your whole thing, you had to get back your man because you won't be respected. If you did anything else besides get your man, it was for nothing basically. So people would look at Orlando in a slightly lower level, even if his homie Dre did the shooting. Yeah, they would. But you know, a lot of people wait for those moments. You know what I mean? Like he ain't all that or he ain't all this. And then if they came out that he didn't do it, like now it's a whole thing. So now you're subject to getting tested because you're not the person you're supposed to be portraying. And by getting tested, you mean other people, like another gang? Yeah, they might try to challenge you. You know what I mean? Your gang, you know, that could be a problem. Now, you were in group settings with Orlando Anderson. Will people ever say, like your homies would ever say, oh yeah, you got Pac, or mention the fact, yeah, the witnesses says, yeah, a few homies. See, our homies on our block, though, we're all South Side. But you know, right there where we're at, nobody on our end ever said nothing like that. It's others in the hood that just want to know, like, you did Pac, bro, woo, woo, woo. And to be honest, Lane was like, nah, man, y'all crazy. Don't believe everything you hear. He would just shut them down off which they knew the truth. Right. They thought they knew the truth, but he never gloated about it. He would just play it off, you know, man, crazy and all of that. He never gloated about it or took it like it was, oh, I'm the man. Honestly, I never seen that. I didn't see that in him, you know what I mean? One last thing about the time you were in Vegas. You mentioned earlier that Dre said Keefe provided the firearm for shooting, is that right? Well, yeah, Zip provided and Keefe gave it, yes. And they asked, in that car, in that situation, you got T Brown, the driver, you got a couple of young soldiers in the back, and you got Keefe in the front, who's the person in charge making the plans of what's going to happen in that car. Keefe is the one who's going to make all of the arrangements and all of the plans until the gun goes into someone else's hand. Because now you're going off on your own accord, you know what I mean? He can't control, he can't force anyone to shoot. But if Keefe hands the gun to Orlando and Orlando says, no, I'm out, that's going to be a big problem. Things would have went real left. And if Keefe handed the gun to Dre, it would have been very terrible because that's not blood to Keefe. Keefe would have came back, and as much as he talked, he would have came back, oh, this, that. He would have poured it on him. So if you wanted to stay good with the gang, good with the neighborhood, they had to do what Keefe was saying. When he's handing it over, Keefe's orchestrating once he's handing back the gun, at least attempt. If tragedy would happen, as long as you got your get back, that was enough to feel that you put in forth the effort to take care of the situation. And that's it. That's what the witness said. It is a former member or might be a current member of the Southside Crips. Testify and let everything out. Says Big Dre is the shooter. Stay tuned, guys. I'll give you part 2, part 3, and part 4, but this is part 1. Stay tuned.